So welcome everybody, and thank you for attending today's webinar on ways to accelerate business growth with Bizview's planning and budgeting power. My name is Danusha Jolliffe, and I'll be facilitating the session today. I'm the marketing director here at T-Vision, and I've been with the business for about 5 years, and I've got about 20 years or so marketing experience. Alongside me, and thank you for joining today, is John Brooks from Insight Software. John has been with Insight Software for about 18 years, and he is the Director of Solutions Engineering for EMEA. He's been working with ERP, reporting and planning solutions since 1990 in a variety of roles, such as software developer, consultant, trainer, and solutions engineer. So he's got a lot of experience that he can be sharing with us this morning, well, this afternoon. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. As always in our webinars, do use the question box or the chat. I'll keep an eye on it. And as they come in, I'll ask John at an opportune moment. If we run out of time, or if your question requires a bit more of a longer answer or a demo, then we can answer that offline directly and arrange it with you. And don't forget, a link to watch the webinar will be sent out afterwards. So on to the webinar. So if you could advance your slides. So yeah, there's myself and John. And the next one. So here we have just a quick overview as to what John will be covering today. Don't forget, it's a very short session today, and I know, John, that you usually like a little bit longer to sort of go into Bizview in depth. But what we like to do is give a high-level overview, introduce people to perhaps some software they haven't seen before. So we're looking at the integration piece, the fast time to value, how easy it is to use as a solution, the fact that you've got direct table access, and the fact that it's a single planning tool. So those are the 5 areas, more or less, that John will be covering. And then if any other questions come up, please do ask. John, over to you.
Thanks very much. So starting off about the integration, over several years, we've been working with various Microsoft ERPs along with our tools, and you'll be probably all familiar with our JET reporting and JET analytics. And as the authors of the JET products, we've also gained a vast amount of Microsoft expertise on all different versions and how to get data in and out, and really making products that understand the Microsoft environment. So that's what we've brought now to planning. We've taken the experience we gathered with products like JET and we've brought it into planning. And so what we've done is we've created a link for our planning system so that it, out of the box, understands the Microsoft system. So for example, it understands how to go into Microsoft and get things like your companies, time, accounts, read different scenarios, but we can get other dimensions as well. So typically we'd look for about 10 dimensions to bring in as a start, and that will get your Microsoft planning up and running very quickly. So the problem with a lot of planning tools is you have to define all of those things manually. You have to effectively teach it how Microsoft works before you can start using a planning tool. We've done all that for you. So when you're using Bizview, you don't have to start off by saying, what's the basic data structures? Bizview already understands Microsoft because we put that knowledge into it. And what we've done is we wanted it to be really simple for an end user to be able to get the data from Dynamics, work on their budgets, whether that's entering assumptions, drivers, creating budget input forms, actually entering numbers, putting in comments, going through approval type workflows, and maybe getting that data then all consolidated together in a way that's really fast and efficient. And what we're trying to get away from is a world where people use spreadsheets, endless amount of spreadsheets, and each budget manager, budget holder, each approver ends up having many, many different spreadsheets that are sent out, worked on, are returned. Maybe there was an error or wrong version or wrong number. You have to send it back and you get a new version come through, or someone's only partially completed it. And you end up having just folders full of Excels that someone has to try and manually merge back together and error check before you can continue your process. So rather than using lots of spreadsheets, we're using a central, it's actually a SQL Server database hosted in Azure, in the Microsoft Cloud, to hold all your data, so it's immediately available to be reported on, to be viewed, to be analyzed, without going through any of that sort of spreadsheet nonsense to to try and drag the data back together again. And you'll have access to all of your tables. So we've actually got direct integration, with the underlying Microsoft system, so we can get to any data you want to. Again, in a project, we'd start off, by saying, well, what do we want to do first? We want to maybe do a P&L budget. We want an input form. We want to do some of the metadata, some of the master data, make sure that's correct. So we'll start off with that level, but we've got access to all of the data. And what we really get is a tool that can then do reporting over Microsoft, put your budgets in, and allow you that really flexible and easy actuals versus budget reporting. So it's no point in just having a good planning tool if you haven't got a good reporting tool as well, because users throughout the month, throughout the quarter and the year, they want to see, how am I doing against my target? Have I hit target? Am I just about to miss, and maybe I need to do something to try and make that target happen? So being able to do.
John, we've already had our first question. Someone has said, can Bizview integrate with Power BI?
Yes, it can actually. So if Power BI is your preferred sort of corporate standard, you might want to embed a section of Bizview, maybe an input form or a report, and actually embed that into your Power BI system. I can actually show you how to do that. It's really simple. So
Thank you.
If you haven't got a corporate reporting tool of choice, Bizview can be it. If you've already got one, we can embed into your tool, and you'll just see it within a frame. So I'll show you that. So you can be a single planning tool for bringing data from multiple systems, and whether you want to see it in Bizview or Power BI or on an iPad or wherever you want to see it, that's your choice. So let's go and have a look at the demonstration now. So what I'm going to do is go up to, so you should now hopefully see my browser with a chart on it. And I've left my toolbar at the top just to show this is just a URL. It's all hosted in the cloud. There's no workbooks being emailed to anybody. There's nothing to install on your computer. It's all done in the cloud. And this is in my browser. I haven't used Chrome. We go to the next tab. That's actually showing what it would look like on an iPad Pro, or I can see what it would look like on an iPad Air. So I've got different form factors. Let's just rotate that iPad. It's all coming through. We can see everything still works on an iPad. So if we want to roll this out to mobile users, maybe people are going out visiting customers or suppliers, and you want to have some information about planning with them, you can do that. So it works on a computer, it works on a mobile device as well. So let's go back to my main tab, and I'm just going to press the full screen button so I can get as much space as I need. So what are we looking at here? Well, I've logged on as a financial planning analysis administrator. So I'm the person who is responsible for planning. I'm responsible for sending out or notifying people when planning starts. I want to control the workflow. I want to be able to see people how they're getting on and chase them. So I've got an overall view of everything. So I can see every user and every step. Now, when a normal end user logs on, they'll only see what they would normally be involved in. So numbers they need to enter, budget forms they need to approve, reports they want to run, etc. But on my homepage, I've got a very configurable homepage. So I've chosen to have some of my favorite items that I want to look at, maybe favorite reports or input forms. I've got steps that I personally need to do in my budgeting for my department. I might have sales per product group for the last few years. I might have some KPIs or metrics down the side. Again, it's up to you what you choose to put on your homepage, depending on your role and your job. The one I want to have a quick look at here is this workflow status right now, and I'm just going to make that the whole screen. So just imagine you've got 30, 40 people involved in a budgeting process, and currently you're sending out spreadsheets. You've got no way of really knowing how are people getting on. Are they nearly finished? Have they even started? Who's doing well, who's not? Maybe you've got some business units that are almost finished, and some that haven't even opened the thing yet. Well, with Bizview, because it's all done from a central database and everything's tracked, we can tell you how you're getting on. So I can actually see that there's 9 people in the current planning scenario, 9 people who haven't entered a single number yet. I've got 11 people who've they're in progress. They've started entering numbers, they've saved the numbers, but they haven't submitted them for approval. I've got one person whose budget is ready to go, ready to be approved. 2 who've been rejected. They're going to have to, the manager has looked at their budget numbers and said, no, have another go. Probably left a comment on there. And some people who restarted after having previously been rejected, they restarted it. And I've got 9 people who get a gold star. They've finished. Their budget's been entered, submitted, and approved. They're done. So over time, throughout a planning cycle or planning scenario, you'll see it start on the left and go more to the right as more and more people finish. You can see how you're getting on. Now let's go and see that in more detail. And to do that, I'm just going to use this toolbar on the side, and there's an option here called workflow. And what I can see is for each entry, I've got a color-coded status code. So, for example, if I roll down, I've got some things at the top around things like some central drivers for planning. So things like what's my sales forecast going in, what's my employee budget parameters. That might be things around wage increases, taxes, national insurance changing. So some top level drivers that are going to affect every department that we don't want each department manager entering or changing. So some sort of assumptions and drivers at the top. Might have things like an IT shared budget that's going to be allocated out. So our IT costs can be allocated across all the different business units, maybe spread using percentages on revenues or headcount or however you want to do it. But then I get down to my business units, and you can see I've got different business units here. Things like business unit 100 is our New York headquarters, 110 is Washington, 120 is Baltimore, etc. And what I can see is the colors linked to this bar going across the page. So I can see if it's gray, they haven't even started. Yellow, they're in progress, they've entered some numbers. Blue, ready for approval. Red, rejected. And green, all done, approved, all happy. So if I look down, I can see business unit 120, they haven't started their employee budget or the result budget. They have put a little bit into the P&L. So they're going to need a chase. I can see business unit 140, they're all done. Top worker to business unit 140, don't need to worry about them. So even at this level, before we've actually got into a form, you can start to see how Bizview is going to give you that overview of your entire planning activity. Who's slowing you down, who's done the work, who's left it to the last minute. I can also see.
Someone said that after people are inputting this information, is there a way of having multiple scenarios? What if this happens? Can we change that budget? Can we set this differently? Does that work? Can you do that?
Absolutely. So you can have as many budgets and scenarios as you want to have.
Okay.
And we were seeing a big move away from people having the old monolithic annual budget that they did at the start of the year and the odd forecast. We're seeing people moving towards rolling sort of 12 or 18 month forecasts where doing the updates, but then having what ifs on top. And actually, because it's all in one database, that's not the nightmare it would be in spreadsheets. Because the problem was if you said I want to have a what if on spreadsheets, someone says, right, well, we've got 30 business units, I need 30 new spreadsheets. And we need to put new drivers in each of them and then bring them back, consolidate that 30. So now you've got my original 30, my what if 30 spreadsheets, and I want to compare the consolidated results from each set. Now, with Bizview, it's all in the SQL Server database in Azure, so we don't have to do any consolidation. The data's already in the same database, so then we're just using version or scenario as a key to the data. So I've got budget versions B1 and B2, and I've got an S1 for a special scenario. And I could actually compare them to say, well, what are my revenues? What was my original revenues in budget 1? What was the revenues in budget 2? And actually, what's the special scenario? What's the what if budget? What if this happens? How would that affect my overall profitability, my P&L? So we can definitely do that much more easily than you can ever dream about doing in a spreadsheet. But it's also because you haven't got that manual work, we're seeing a lot of people taking the opportunity as well to move from, say, quarterly forecasting to that monthly rolling review. But they couldn't possibly have done a monthly budget cycle before because it would take them 3 or 4 weeks to do a budget cycle. So you couldn't do one of those every month. It would just take all the time. So again, when things are working in hours rather than days and weeks, you're able to do things much more frequently and have time for added value stuff like what if type scenarios and the analysis of them. Right, let's go and have a look at some data. I'm going to go into Business 100. I can see we've got, for instance, the employee budget's ready to approve. So let's go and have a look at the result budget. Now, by clicking on that, what you'll see on this side of the page is who's meant to be doing it, some instructions that were given. Maybe I've got some attachments here. Maybe there's a PowerPoint to start about the budget process that was sent out, a spreadsheet of calculations or assumptions that I want to have just recorded as notes. So everyone's familiar with putting a little comment on a cell. We can attach whole documents as comments. We also have comments here at the whole form level as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to open this form and go in and have a look at the data. Now, when you first look at this, you're going to think that looks an awful lot like a spreadsheet, and that's not an accident. That is by design. So what we've got is a layout that could have even come from a spreadsheet. If you've got a current Excel that you use for planning, you could import that along with the formulas into Bizview as a starting point. And yeah, this is the thing about Bizview. It's designed to be used by finance departments. So when you've got someone who's got, they understand your business, they know your planning process, and they know spreadsheets, they're well on the way to being a Bizview user. If I just go into here and say, actually, I want to switch on my view bar, I want to switch on things like formulas and headings, you'll actually see it now looks even more like a spreadsheet. This isn't just a random £588 in the cell. This is actually cell AC35. And what we can do is behind the scenes in Bizview, when we import a template, we're actually coding that up. So it knows what in Microsoft that refers to. So it'll know that that actually refers to account number 3011 for that year and that month, for the New York business unit, for budget version B1. And this is up here, that's where we have different versions of what ifs. This is the B1 version. So this is why it can all get stored in the database together, because it has a unique reference, effectively the key to that data. And likewise, if I go and look at this line here, row 37, I click on that total, you can see a very sort of spreadsheet-like formula. That's because it is. This equals the sum of the three things above it. So you can understand how these formulas are made. But let's go beyond where a spreadsheet would have a problem now and do some things that would typically break a spreadsheet. So the first off to note is this is looking at our P&L budget. And I've got some cells that are white that I can input. I've got some cells that are grayed out because they're coming from another system. This column here is actually coming straight from Microsoft, so straight from your dynamic system. And this is saying, how much did we sell last year? These are actual sales for this account last year. And I can see all my actuals coming through. I've got other cells further down that have a light gray, and again, they can't be changed here. And this is things like, in my example here, salaries, the cost of benefits, maybe healthcare, pensions, things like that, because that was done as part of the employee budget process. So the employee budget for my business unit might be done by myself, or it might be done by someone else. But the data is all being merged together here. So if you've got multiple processes that end up getting you, the result of, will my business unit make a profit? That all comes together in Bizview in real time. So I don't have to wait until the end of every process to see that. So I can't change numbers here because that's already been done and approved as part of my employee budgeting cycle, but I can see the results further all the way down. I can get down to where I can see how much profit I'm likely to make month by month, because it's taking into account my allocation of the IT costs, my headcount costs, things like that. So let's go back to our revenues and enter some revenues. Well, the first thing is I might just want to put a budget number in. I might want to use a formula. I might want to type a number in, like we're going to sell 50,000 this year. And as soon as I put that number in, you'll see all of the numbers change. Again, very sort of spreadsheet-like in that regards. And what it's doing, it's spreading that 55,000 across all of the months of the year using a spread key. And these are formulas that you can create. You can use our standard ones. You can create your own. So this is using the spread of, use the same percentage mix as last year's sales. So if I wanted to say, well, actually, I don't want it to be last year's, I'd like it to be even across all the months. It'll now make it 55,000 divided by 12. You've got an even spread. Or maybe I've got a special seasonal allocation for these products that I want to use instead and do that. But I could go into here as well and say, well, actually, we know we're running a promotion in March and we expect March to be double February. So I could just go in and say, I want to have that times 2. And so now if I go and change February's number, you'll see March changes. But you also see it's changing the total for the year here. So in Excel, that would have broken by now because you've broken the formula. But Bizview is realizing, oh, okay, the user's now not spreading it over here. They're doing something clever over here. Then if I put 10,000 in there, you're going to see that's now 77,000. Yeah, that's too much. It's now gone down to 62,000. So you can see how the formulas are working actually in multiple directions. But I can do things like I can lock cells. I can do more advanced formulas as well. There's a whole bunch of things I can do there to help create my numbers. Now, if I just want to save one of these, I'm just going to save it. And I'm not going to say this form is ready for approval because that would lock the form and send my manager an email saying John's finished his budget. He's approved it. I'm just going to say no to that. And the reason I want to do that is I want to show you a bit of the auditing. And this is, again, a key advantage over and above a spreadsheet-based process. I can go to my month and I can say, well, actually, I'd like to see the audit trail. And I can actually see that where did this 5,000 number, because that's the number I hit the save button on, that was entered by this user on the 15th of June at 11:24. Okay, that's my server time. And it was done using template BU01. And what I can see underneath it is all of the amounts that have ever been saved for this budget cycle for that number for February. So you get away from that, well, I never put 5,000 in there for February. I don't know where that number came from. Well, actually, I can see you did. And this is when you did it and which process you did it, which form you did it with. So we've got an audit trail of the numbers. We can also put, if you want to put a comment in here, I can do this. So trade show in Feb should drive this increase. Okay, and I'll just put the comment on there and you get the little notification. Now, again, like in spreadsheets, if you have a spreadsheet from all 30 departmental managers and you merge the numbers together, you probably lost the comments that they put in. With Bizview, those comments are still in the central database. So you can always see the comments for the business, for each business unit, even though they're now all effectively merged together onto a report. So you don't lose your comments in Bizview the way you would in a spreadsheet. I might also say that actually what I want to do is actually have maybe comments at the row level. So I've just used a little show hide bar here where I can do things like, what else would I like to see on here? Would I like to see my long-term plan? Yes, I would. Would I like to see row comments? Yes, I'd like to see that as well. So what I've now got is a comment field where I can go into here and actually put in some comments. And I've got a little red message because I haven't put a comment on this one yet. But I've also switched on things like I want to see my medium or long-term plan. So I might have budgeting by month for the next year, but a single figure for the 3 years following. I want to, much more sort of rule of thumb. So I can actually say I want to go into here and say, I think next 3 years are going to go by 8% per year. And it's taking the numbers I've worked on over here and increasing them over by 8% for the next 3 years. I think it's all going to be 11%. So I can have things by month, things by year. I can spread them how I want to. I've got a lot of agility and flexibility in the system. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to save this once more. Actually, before I do that, I'll answer the question on Power BI. So if somebody says, I've got a Power BI corporate decision, everything must go through there. I can actually just go up to my share option here and say, I want to share this. And do I want to have just a URL? Or if I'm going to Power BI, I'd take this. I'd just copy and paste that. And I've now got the script I need to post into a Power BI page. And this Bizview window, the result budget data entry form, will now just appear in Power BI. And it literally is as simple as that. And that can be other technology as well, but obviously within the Dynamics space, Power BI is a very popular one. But we can have it as a web page. We can have it as an embedded frame. We might want to show the headers as well, just have it on there. But it's simple as that.
John, just had one other question saying, can Bizview connect to other data sources as well as Microsoft?
Absolutely. I mean, you might find that someone's got an external payroll system, for example, and you want to have ADP payroll coming in to have some cost coming in from there. So we'll bring data together. You just have to define the dimensions you want to bring together into Bizview, and you can hold data from as many sources as you want to. So again, we normally like to do our project in phases. So we say, what we want to do, what's the most important thing for phase one? It's maybe doing our departmental cost budget or our sales revenue budgeting or planning. But you can bring in as many sources as you want to. And that's real power. And that's where it can do a lot of your reporting analysis from multiple systems. Again, that's a job that's often done in spreadsheets because people don't have a good tool to do that. A lot of people are dumping data into spreadsheets. Rather than do that, just bring it into Bizview and it's all together there.
Okay.
So the last things I was going to show was actually, if I just save that data, I'll now say that's ready for approval. You'll see that's now turned blue in my workflow. So the last thing I was going to do is actually just go into, say, one of the reports. And I'm just going to go in and say I want to run a profit and loss report. And I can go in and say, well, I'd like to run for budget version 1. These are all my different budgets and scenarios and what ifs that I could be running for. And I might want to do this for a particular set of business units. So I might want to include, say, New York on this. I have a couple of others going down here. And I'll press open. And this is going to show the real power of using the Azure SQL database to do your planning in with Bizview rather than, say, spreadsheets. So what it's shown me for all of the business units I selected, at the bottom you see the different tabs. That's my full P&L for business unit 100 for the B1 version of the budget. That's my Washington, there's Baltimore, etc. And at the end, if I click on the total tab, that's my consolidated budget with actuals and with a variation for all of my business units. So imagine somebody says to you, okay, I now need to see a consolidated budget, but I don't want to include Washington, I want to include someone else. And these are the kind of requests that CFOs and FDs give all the time. I can just go back to my selection page and said, right, I'm going to turn off, say, Philadelphia, but I'm going to add on Nashua. Click on that, and I've now got a different mix of business units have gone. So 130's gone, and 150's been added, and my totals have now been updated. I've still got my audit trail. In fact, I could drill through to see all of the accounts in Dynamics where that data, the actuals came from. I could drill through on my budgets. I can actually see there's my comment I put in coming through. So even though this is on a different report now, it knows there was a comment linked to that cell of data and it can bring it through for me. If I've got multiple comments, they'll all be brought through. So it's easier to go and collect the data. It's easier for people to input the data. You can have multiple processes from multiple data sources, and you eliminate all the tasks around handling of multiple workbooks, multiple versions. It's all taken care of in the Azure database. And you can see it through Power BI if that's your preference. So yeah, that's a quick intro into into what Bizview can do. I think it's if you are interested, it'd be great to have a longer chat with you at another time. I'd like to say thank you to Team Vision for setting this up for us today, and I hope you enjoy the presentation.
So thank you so much, John, for giving us that demo. I know, as you said before when we were speaking, that obviously you couldn't go into much more depth, but this literally was that snapshot overview just to get people interested. So as always with our webinars, they will be available on demand on the website in the next few days, and the link will be sent out with the recording. And if anyone does have any further questions, then just get in touch directly with me and I can put you in touch with John. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.